this editor, it's okay. It's just tiny MCE, and I could probably get what I want to do done more easily just by putting in HTML. So let's not use WordPress. So I went to automatic with completely fresh eyes on WordPress with the aim of improving the editing user experience if I could. And then they said, we've got this new project called Gutenberg. Why don't you go help out on it? So I did. And they said, do the Twitter block first. You just implement a simple Twitter block. It'll be really easy. You're dealing with embedded content. That's the easiest thing in the world in WordPress. They lied. Here I am, like a year and a half later. And I'm just obsessed with embeds. If somebody says their embed doesn't render properly, I'm there. I've got alerts set up everywhere. For fun, I play guitar and I stream retro computer games on YouTube.
Well, thank you. Zach?
Howdy, y'all. I'm in the DC area, Washington, DC. Been, for the last couple of years, focused on teaching JavaScript largely within the WordPress community. So focusing a lot on just core JavaScript skills, introducing React, and experimenting with different ways to deliver content and stuff that's best. And of course, now with Gutenberg here, that's kept me pretty busy this last year with trying to do courses and education stuff and just keep myself educated around everything that involves. And quite a time it's been. For fun outside of that, I'm into yoga, growing food, music, getting outdoors, away from the computer, you know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, and you do office yoga on live TV or on YouTube Live, right? So if anybody needs some yoga. I did a little boo-boo here. Technology is involved and I screwed up. Sorry about that. We are live now on the YouTube, but some of the introduction, I will edit the video afterwards and put this in. Thank God I have Plan B in place. We have recording on multiple places, so I can kind of mix and match. So one of the few advantages that I have on these putting these live Q&As together is I get first dibs on the questions. So, and they hopefully trigger follow-up questions from the viewers. So Mika, you have been in the WordPress space for a long time, at least as I do remember.
Yeah, probably since before WordPress had widgets.
That's 2.7 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but as the plugin review team lead, you are pretty much one of the few guardians, really powerful guardians of the ecosystems, but also necessary.
Sadly necessary, yeah. And that is a heavy responsibility.
And I'm glad you take this on. This needs a yes from a big leader. And thank you for doing that. And I have the feeling that with the newly gained cool factor on WordPress with React and ES Next and ES6 kind of JavaScript, that there will be, and new developers are coming on. I think they might be ready now for putting a plugin in the repository. So what are the top 3 mistakes or hurdles that trip up a new and young developer in the plugin in that space?
Oh, these have not changed. These top 3 items have not changed in 7 years. So this ought to tell you something. Number 1 is prefixing your classes and functions. The number of times I see define plugin name version, literally, not, my cool plugin name, no, literally plugin name version. That is right now 60% of the reason a plugin will get pushed back for having incorrect prefixes. But when you're putting something in a shared space that's got 65,000 some odd plugins, you have to give things names that are unique and distinct to your plugin. Otherwise, you'll have conflicts. That's the biggest problem. Next, after that, is people including their own copy of jQuery or calling it remotely, because you don't need it. WordPress has it. And the third one is assuming that administrators aren't going to make mistakes. So people will sometimes neglect to sanitize things that only an admin can access, with the assumption of, well, an administrator would never paste in the wrong data. And I like to remind them that, yes, but your administrator is also your least experienced coworker with admin access, and they may not realize what they're pasting into where.
Well, yeah, that's very helpful, but that has nothing to do with JavaScript.
It has nothing to do with JavaScript. It doesn't, but those are well, except for jQuery does.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The thing about Gutenberg is that by the time they get the plugins to me to test, they are either not going to work at all, and then I kick it back and say, did you actually test this, or did you send me the wrong file? Or it's fine, because there's so much compiling that has to happen with React and with the new ESLint that you basically can't get to where you can submit a plugin before you've finished all that. So yeah. It's been a non-issue for me, thank God. Otherwise, that would be a lot more work.
Yeah, I imagine. And some of the work, if 60% of them are namespace issues, you have a tool for that, right?
I do, but it's actually opening up the plugin and looking at the main plugin file, and it's right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't need a tool. We don't actually use any tools. It's all, I mean, we have, sometimes I use the WPCS if I notice they've got a PHP CS code in there to say, these are my rules. Sometimes I'll pop that open and look, but for the most part, we really just open up your plugin and read every single file.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Zach, I have a similar question for you. You are now almost 12 months into your course on how to build Gutenberg blogs for WordPress. And you and I, we had a few discussions about what are best practices, what is the best way to approach things with all the new interfaces that are there. What have you seen are the hardest hurdles for developers to jump over into the blog editor landscape?
Yeah, there are a few of them. The cool thing, though, is that it's actually been surprisingly way easier for people who haven't done much JavaScript to get in and build some blocks and compose things. So that's really exciting. But in terms of, I think the first hurdle folks hit is tooling, and they may not need to know a lot necessarily, but some simple things like installing stuff with NPM or knowing that Webpack is running in the background. We're at the point where we probably don't need to configure too much. There's a lot of starting tools, but just that as a roadblock is one thing. And then I'd say maybe knowing React becomes essential, just knowing how components are, like, being literate, being able to read it and understand what's going on and copy and paste what you need. And then kind of at the end of that list is actual core JavaScript skills. You know, I've been trying to help folks learn JavaScript deeply, but we're kind of at the point, it's like, well, you don't really need to actually do a lot of cool stuff. I mean, I still encourage it, and it definitely helps once you hit a certain point. But really, I think it's that tooling, understanding how React looks in JSX, and then maybe those extended JavaScript skills. But folks are building some really cool stuff without knowing too much JavaScript, which I think is exciting for WordPress, and hopefully not giving the plugin review team too much stress. I do feel that sometimes, like, just go make a plugin, and sorry for all the extra work there, but you know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So my original or first question for Nicola is actually that I'm starstruck. I'm a huge fan of the whole embed capabilities of Gutenberg, and that has been to WordPress, but now is to the next level. And I know you have been working on this for quite a while. And back in 2017, there was a service called Storyfy. And it helped me to curate all these community voices that are now called Gutenberg Times. And that went away. And I added a tweet and a blog post and a video and an Instagram. And it would all line up nicely on the page. When I do the same in Gutenberg or in WordPress, every embed code has pretty much its own size and behavior. I tried to get around this a little bit with the column block, but that is a whole nother story there. Do you have some advice for theme developers or even plugin developers who want to support a curator to make the various embed blocks all line up and be nice and neat? Yeah.
Yeah, strangely enough, I do. It's almost as if I had something prepared. So what you're seeing...
You want to share something?
Yeah, so I'll explain why you're seeing what you're seeing at the moment. Is because the new batch of themes that are coming out for WordPress, 2019 specifically, they're geared for all of the wider content that you can have now with Gutenberg. So if you skip back to 2016 or 2015, you will see everything line up fine because the content is so much smaller. Twitter is... when Twitter supplies its content, the maximum width it will display is 550 pixels. That's it. You can't ask it to go full width. You can't... I suppose you could really mess with jQuery and try and force it, but it's not going to look great. Automatically, it's limited at 550. Whereas YouTube and Gutenberg, that's responsive. It will scale to... however wide your content is or however narrow your content is, and it'll maintain aspect ratio if your theme supports that. Yeah, I'm just plugging my own features here. It's fine.
Oh, it's a damn good feature. So
yes, responsive embeds, yes. And with the classic editor, it would be a real pain to try and get everything lined up. But with Gutenberg, we wrap each embed in its own figure, which has classes applied. Which tell you what type of embed it is and that it is an embedded content. So you can affect this with just a couple of lines of CSS. So I've got a demo post lined up. If I can share my screen, I can show you exactly how to do this, and it takes about 10 seconds.
All right, you got 10 seconds.
Okay,
No, I would love to see that. Yeah.
Let's hope that this works.
When she's done, can I ask her a question?
Sure. You can always jump in and ask questions. Yeah, that's not. We see Adam. Adam raised his hand on Adam Warner on the chat. Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm running on Linux, because I'm just special, I can only share my desktop. So hopefully you're seeing a portrait desktop here.
Yes.
Okay, great. So you can see I've got 3 embeds here. I've got a tweet, I've got an embedded blog post, and I've got a song from some TV show. Now, they're all different sizes because Twitter limits things. WordPress embeds have their own rules about how wide things are, and YouTube embeds are responsive and will fill everything up. I have an extension in Chrome called User CSS, so I can just inject some CSS rather easily. And if I say to our post that I want
live coding on TV, that's pretty cool.
So I want all embed blocks to be 500 pixels wide. And let's actually take that's the width, that'd be a good idea. There we are.
Oh, awesome. That was easy.
And that's it. Because we put in those wrappers in the HTML to say this is a block, then you have a block level element on the page you can manipulate with CSS.
Cool.
Which means you can do some really, really cool things. So you can target Twitter embeds and just say, right, Twitter embeds are going to be 250 pixels wide.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, once you've got this, you can say, right, I'm going to target Twitter and I'm going to target WordPress. And I'm going to say they're inline blocks. And I'm going to set the height to 250 pixels, and I'm going to turn the overflow to hidden. And then suddenly you've got things which can tile. So see that, I mean, my screen's not wide enough to properly show it, or I've got my CSS wrong. Probably, to be honest, I've got my CSS wrong. Yeah, I've got my CSS wrong. There we go. So now you can target specific embeds to have a tiled gallery.
Oh, right. Oh, that's awesome. So, yeah. Nicola, can you, do you think you could widen that tool a bit? There are some complaints that's very, very tiny.
Unfortunately, I can't because I'm special and I'm on Linux and it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, but I really like that that masonry pretty much kind of lining up of.
But what I can do, I can record a YouTube video specifically showing how to do this, and then we can share that after the stream.
Oh, that would be marvelous. Yeah, awesome.
Great.
So when you said you could target specific embeds, I've added my own embeds so that I could embed things like we ran a contest and I wanted to embed the how to fill in the form from the contest website because I didn't want to have to, write the HTML. And the embed looks great, but does it automatically put in what kind of embed it is, or do I have to do something special?
No, you're asking me to remember.
Yeah, I know that's a trick question for a live chat, isn't it?
As I remember, it will. So the class for an embed block is WP block embed. And the provider specific class would be WP block embed hyphen provider. So we have hyphen YouTube, Twitter. So if your embed has if the response from your embed comes back with a provider name that you can target, that will automatically get a class name.
I'm pretty sure that I did that. And if not, I'll go back and look.
So that's already there for you to use.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Did we trigger any other question here? I saw Lisa coming in, working on some of the, stating Lisa, you're working on embeds. What are you working on today? Do you have a question about that? Apart from that, it was really, it wasn't tiny, it was timely. Sorry, I had a reading error here. No question. Okay, we go down. So we get earlier today, this week, not today. This week I got a question from Cory Salazano on Twitter, and he had a question: what is the future of a themes archive PHP file in this world where the block editor just started swallowing all things singular? Apart from the poetry there. So what's the purpose of an archive? I wasn't able to do a whole follow-up there. But the archive pages, so what do you think? What are you trying to figure out?
I think if you look at the long-term view, just based on the things that Matt has shown and the idea is that, well, now that we have blocks in posts, we're going to talk about blocks instead of widgets. And we're going to talk about blocks and replacement of other things, and everything becomes a block. If you carry that thought all the way through to everything's a block, then eventually your theme can be a very small, lightweight wrapper that doesn't have to do all those things of, if the archive page is this, show this. It can just be on the archive page, show the archive block. And then you can define what block you want to show on the archive pages. And now I don't have to be a theme developer to know how to go in and change how my archive page looks. I can just go into WordPress and say, I'd want these blocks on my archival pages, and WordPress would show it. Obviously, that's like 5 years. Well, I wouldn't say 5 years down the road. That's probably just a year or two down the road at this rate. But it's a phenomenal concept that I think that the idea of making WordPress entirely modular is going to happen. And that's really cool.
Yeah. What do you think, Zach? Any comment on that?
That was such a good answer. Exactly what you said.
It's possible I rehearsed that before coming on the show.
I think we may get into interesting situations, like if a theme wants to have certain designs or certain blocks, is that paired with a plugin, and then can we set defaults? But again, some of this is far out, right? So at the moment, if you're building a theme, I think it's still worth building your archive template and coding that out. But you're right, very quickly blocks are going to be able to replace entire template files. With probably some other configurations, lightweight, going somewhere else if you want to set defaults and things like that, I would imagine.
Yeah, I kind of see it as like the generic theme might be eventually going away and shifting to a more bespoke model, where the bespoke theme that locks things in and makes it so that you can only pick one of X archives that is specific for your site's design, that's still going to be a thing. But all of these, oh, it's a plugin that looks very much, or a theme that looks very much like this other theme, only it's designed for news. Well, now what if you could do all that through WP admin and you just use the same default theme? That'd be kind of neat. I mean, I don't write themes though. So for me, I think it's neat. And I'm sure that a theme developer is listening to this in absolute horror of this world that I've described where they're no longer useful.
But well, I can actually see quite a few things that would be very, very helpful for a theme developer to just raise the level a little bit, would be in providing different layouts for different use cases of your content. Yeah, being in print, every magazine has a different layout on their pages. Yeah, with either photo heavy or text heavy or these kind of things, and here's a graphic and here's a pull-out quote, and those things are very, very hard to do still with block. With Blockstyle, they are easier, but they were not able to do in classic editor without a lot of programming and a lot of different content containers somewhere. And,
doing all the meta boxes to say, oh, this is my photo.
Right.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so, but providing these different layouts and what you see is what you get would make a content creator or an editor very, very happy. Yeah, to say, okay, I want to have this frame around or this kind of shape around the image here because it kind of leads themselves to it, and I want it on a black background, and then the text on a gray background, kind of, yeah. But make those fixed, yeah. Only have 4 or 5 layouts, so the decision-making process in producing the content is taken away, and it's all branded. But I still think that that's very hard to do in actual themes right now, which would be very, very easy, very helpful in the block editor. I don't know how you see that.
Yeah, being able to build little blocks or sidebars that automatically line up a bunch of stuff. And we also have the styles API, which is really cool. So you could write a plugin that just introduces alternative styles to all the blocks there and brings that, kind of theme aspect in another way too.
Yeah, I saw from quite a few, and I put the links in the show notes. There is at the State of the Word, Matt Mollemick had a few designs up there. One was from Amnesty International and linked to an article from the agency who put this together. And there was a similar way to put different designs together and make them put them in the place where they can have microsites pop up for different campaigns or different topics where they can easily put their designs together without having a designer kind of think out, okay, now I have to do another site for them. So it was really interesting to see. And I think those success stories are not out yet completely. Chris Van Patten also did a few of those in his talk at the WordCamp Publisher in Denver earlier this year. So, though I have a few more questions for you. So, Mika, you wrote specific tutorials for plugin developers on how to do certain things. What was the reason apart from that? Okay, I answered this question now 15 times. I write a blog post about it, and then I can point people to it.
It actually was never about that. It was never, I've answered this question too many times. I'm so tired of it. If that actually is the case, I posted on WordPress.org/plugins. This is more, so you're talking about halfelf.org, which is actually kind of on a hiatus right now because I had so little time and I was getting kind of burnt out writing 2 to 3 times a week. All of the posts there are because I was trying to solve a problem and it was driving me crazy. And I thought, well, if I sit down and document what's the problem, how am I solving it, how did I get to my answer, then maybe someone else in the future will be able to look at it and go, oh, aha, I'm having a similar problem. Here's the thought process. I can follow it and find my own answers. And for the most part, that actually is what all of those posts are. They're just me trying to solve crazy things that I do in WordPress, because I like to joke that a theme is a theme. It's always going to be changing how your website looks, but a plugin can do anything, and people do some really crazy stuff with plugins. I say that from experience. I do some of the craziest, stupidest, are you sure that should be a plugin? Oh, I'm never telling anyone I wrote this code kind of stuff on my sites all the time. Right now, I have a theme that is so heavily tied into a plugin and a separate library that it's tragic. But sometimes you reach a point where what you want to do has to be done this way. It has to be so heavily integrated that there's no other way around it. And all those lessons I learned, I figure somebody else can learn from them too. It might help people down the road. I still get people saying, hey, I found your blog post from 2010 and it had the answer to the question I was looking for. And I'm like, well, then it's done its job.
Yeah, and what I'm referring to and what we're talking about is in Gutenberg was about, you wrote about the shortcodes versus blocks.
Oh, is that the editing is already broken?
Right, and shortcuts aren't leaving us, kind of thing. Yeah, I like those headlines quite, but it's
a little BuzzFeedy. I'm sorry, they're a little bit BuzzFeedy. I was kind of making a showy title to catch people's attention.
Yeah, well, how else do you spread the word around about some of the things, right?
Sadly, those are mostly those posts, the ones that are me talking about things like, oh, hey, we're not getting rid of shortcodes. We are changing things to make blocks first, shortcodes second. You're still going to need to use inline shortcodes. So like I have one that puts out a copyright and I just put in shortcode, bracket, copyright, bracket, and it puts in whatever year it is, which is great, but that's not a block yet. I imagine we'll be able to solve that nested block problem of putting a block inside a block more finely and granularly down the road, but we aren't there today. So shortcodes aren't going away today. Will they eventually go away? I would say in a perfect world, yes, but let's not panic. And I was watching all these people put the cart before the horse and go, oh my God, we're changing everything, blocks, everything, shortcodes are going to die. What about all my hundreds of plugins? They're still going to work, folks. And that's more, I don't want to have this talk with people on Twitter all the time. I really just, no, let me rant about television and sports balls on Twitter. And I don't want to get into heated discussions of your favorite shortcode plugin is going away.
Yeah, we have, yeah, and do you want to say something?
I was just going to say that some of the embeds, the embed system is still reliant on shortcuts being there and being usable, so they're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not even sure if that inline shortcode with the copyright and then adding the year to it, if that actually values if a block is not too heavy shooting at that problem. I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Well, I imagine that they may still be like shortcodes, but instead of shortcodes, imagine if in the middle of your post you do the / and type in copyright, and it puts in a little, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what they call them in Legos when you've got like the single square blocks. So like if you think of each paragraph block as being one of those like 3x2 or 4x2 Lego squares, and then the little copyright thing is a 1x1 that you put on top of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, I mean, not the best metaphor, perhaps, but
well, it helped me in that moment.
It's more that the big block, the big shortcodes that take up like a whole page or a big paragraph where you need to use a shortcode and embed all of this special information. I've gotten rid of all of mine. They're all gone on my website now. I mean, they're still there because we have posts that used them and I don't want to break them, but they're hidden and now everybody can use a block. And I wrote a bunch of blocks to replace them because I was able to give people a visual representation of, you go in, you say, okay, I'm going to give this, they're like grades. So like you could say this show gets an A+, and then here's why I gave it an A+. You can see it visually. And like there's a big A, and on the sidebar, you can change the A to an F if you want to, and you can change the text, and you see what it is. And my new editor just loves it. She's like, this is great. I can see what I'm doing.
Right. You don't have to do the
cryptic shortcode.
Yeah, or the save here and then go over there, preview, and then see how that works out. Yeah, that's definitely that. So Christian Zunbrunnen, I'm assuming it's at least German descent, has a comment. He would love to create a plugin, develop or blocks, and would love to do them himself and find a coach that leads him through it. And but the two blocks would be a self-hosted Reveal.js-based slideshow block, and the other one would be a front-end facing customizable WordPress events and news block. And the short answer I have for him is go to JavaScript for WP.com and sign up for Zach Gordon's Gutenberg block development course. He leads you right through it. What's your long answer, Zach?
Yeah, the long answer is like, well, this is a really cool scenario that I've seen a lot of people in, is that they don't just want a plugin. They want a plugin that somebody records how they built it so that they can learn as they go along. And sometimes that's really awesome. Sometimes I think folks might get in too quickly over their heads, and I don't know Christian at all to like assess which is the case, but sometimes like something complex, like you really need to know, you might need to skip 5 or 6 different things that are actually pretty in depth. I'm just guessing to build a front facing customizable WordPress.
I think I misread it. He wants to find a coach. That's why I was pointing to you, not coach somebody else.
Yeah, I've done some coaching in the past and I'd love to. I'm at the moment trying to see like what can scale as big as possible. So I'm running boot camps every 3 months. And that would definitely be a scenario, but it wouldn't exactly be the best one. I know that the Slack community over at JavaScript for WP has a lot of folks that would probably be able to help out with this, that know how to build blocks and, freelancer work different times. I don't know if a good go-to recommendation, maybe some other folks can hop on and recommend as well, but that is a really cool setup to be able to have somebody not just build it, but you learn along the way.
Maybe that's something that WordCamps can start looking into at Contributor Day, of not just how do we contribute to all the major things that go into core, but have someone say, I'm willing to sit here and teach you how to make a block. Let's start with a simple block. I mean, it could even be, because a workshop is going to be, 30 people, 50 people in a room, but at a Contributor Day, you can sit down with 3 people and talk to them about what are you trying to do? Let's see if we can help. Ask an expert at community days.
Yeah, or it could just be an unconference kind of event on a WordCamp. If I remember correctly, Zach, there was a workshop kind of way in WordCamp Europe, but that was 50 people, 80 people in a room and follow Zach along. And
yeah, like we were saying, the workshop experience is great and can have a bunch, but it wouldn't be specifically about like that block that everyone gets to bring and look at specifically, right? Mm-hmm. The shortest, this doesn't help the coaching aspect, but one of the cool things that we are in a space with the React and Gutenberg blocks, and it's kind of like the jQuery days of old, is that if there's a React component that can do what it is you want, so like a slideshow reveal or something like that, it's not too hard to just kind of import stuff from the React ecosystem right in to your block. And if you understand, and this is where like my course might help, or somebody's tutorial can get you that far. And then once you could just drop in React stuff in there, then it's really exciting how powerful we could build really quickly and really easily, just leveraging libraries again.
Yeah.
My big drama with that was trying to figure out what library am I trying to use. I spent, I think, a day trying to decipher how to use Lodash properly so that I could increment and de-increment things for my listicles plugin, which I just released, I think, this month.
Yeah, there's a lot of possible rabbit holes, right?
And it's all new to me, too. So I was in the weeds the whole time. So if anybody watching this thinks, oh my gosh, I'm never going to learn this. No, I was in that trough of despair for like 3 weeks. But Tracy asked me, can you make this? And I thought, I'm going to make this because she needs it. We need it. Let's do it. Yeah,
I think that's how I learn as well, is kind of to plow through the hurdles that you get, and even sleeping over it. Or kind of putting it away for a day or two kind of gets you a little bit further. There was one, the documentation team is slightly behind on a lot of things in Gutenberg, but there's one new tutorial on the handbook that tells you how to get started on JavaScript in WordPress, and that has a few very good pointers. I'll put it in the show notes. For those watching, do I have it here? I kind of, or do I have it on my computer, kind of fastly reachable? Maybe. But Nicola and Zach, I have another idea of a plugin where I kind of wanted to find out if there is a way to approach it. Going back to the embeds, when I put a link in a paragraph on my on a post, I get the event of, okay, somebody clicked on it and went off to another part, to better pastures, or a different website. And I see that in WordPress stats and in Google Analytics. When I do the embed, I do not see that. Is there a way to tap into that click event somehow? And if possible, what would be the first step to actually do that?
Nicola, you want to take this one? Work a little bit more intimately. I'd kind of be guessing.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more complex. Oh. It's embeds. Of course, it's complex. it's never straightforward. So my first thought is that because we have the WP block embed class on every embed, that it might be possible with jQuery to use that selector to find all of the links within embedded content. So any links that appear inside a figure which has the WP block embed class on it. Some of the embeds do use iframes, so you're probably going to have to walk the DOM to find all of the link elements that appear within those blocks. I think probably the most difficult one's going to be Twitter and Facebook, because they are very, very special embeds which do all kinds of their own click tracking and click handling. I'd say it's theoretically possible. You just might run into some problems with Twitter and Facebook on those. So that's the first thing I'd try. Walk the DOM to find all of the link elements below a WP block embed figure, and assign your own click handler. And just remember to call the existing click handler as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it actually, when somebody clicks, it gets out. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was helpful. I'll just put in the chat window the link to the JavaScript, getting started with JavaScript from the Gutenberg handbook, just so for those who are there. So what other questions do we have? I'm looking over to the Gutenberg channel on YouTube. There are no questions for now. What about here? Did I miss anybody? Christian had a question for Zach. Is the study groups or real-world projects to start? Oh, on the Slack channel for your things, yeah. So, but I have a question for you all. What's the most exciting thing for Gutenberg? What got you excited when you first saw it?
I liked the death of shortcodes. I mean, and I say this is because I'm from the place of shortcodes aren't going away, but I like that they are. No, I mean, I said it earlier. What drew me to it was I took one look and I realized this means I don't have to explain to my dad, who is, my father he's got a degree in mathematics. He is incredibly smart and talented when it comes to that. And he looks at the tiny MCE editor and he's like, I don't understand why things are so weird. Why can't I just put in what I want? Why do I have to know this weird and cryptic code for short codes? Why doesn't LaTeX just work when I paste it in? And all those things kind of vanished, and now he doesn't send me PDFs anymore of please post this on my website. Zach's laughing right now. Oh my God, you have no idea. Getting PDFs from a 69-year-old man saying, this is my technical brief. Could you please post it for me? I finally got him to start sending me Word documents though, so at least there's that. But now he made his first post himself just this month, and he got really excited. And then he said, I'm going to forget how to do everything, so I might just send it to you again. Like, well, all right, Dad, now you're 70. I'll give you a break.
Something.
So what do you think, Nicola? What was the exciting thing for Gutenberg that says, oh, yes, I want to work on this? Or I want this in the world. I want this.
There's some really cool things. I really like how the editor's picking up a lot more from the theme now. So if you have 2019 there, you get a lot of styles in the editor from the theme. So the first time I loaded WordPress 5 and thought, oh, they've changed all the styles in the editor. No, it's because I had 2019 activated and the editor's picking up theme styles. That's incredibly exciting because it's really reflecting what's on the front end of the site a lot more than it used to now. That's really exciting. Phase 2 and whether that could go integration into the customizer, much thinner themes, that's all really exciting. Paste handlers as well. Paste handlers are fantastic, and it's not something I've heard people talk about a lot, but did you know that if you're in Photoshop and you select a part of an image and copy it, you can just paste it into Gutenberg?
Ooh, mind blown.
And it takes the pasted image, it uploads it to your media library and gives you an image block.
Are you kidding me? I didn't know that.
Go try it. That's the power of paste handlers in Gutenberg. So it's just fantastic. It's like, oh, I just want this part of this image in my blog post. Copy, paste into your post, and it's there. That type of thing just opens up a whole world of possibilities of things we can do. And that's really exciting for me.
So what's in your memory, Zach? What excited you the most?
Those two were just very exciting for me, by the way.
You have known about it before, right?
I think what's exciting for me is the building out of a data store in WordPress on the JavaScript end. So what we're beginning to have now is access to all the PHP queries and custom REST API endpoints directly in JavaScript, just as a kind of a variable and a function we could call. So there's going to be a time when any data you want, you could just pull it out. And if you want to save that data back, you don't have to go build a custom API endpoint and set all that up. So the evolution of this is really going to change stuff quickly. And I think that that's really exciting because it's going to make so many things a lot easier to build and a lot faster. And yeah, just that integration when the customizer and the theme itself can read from all the same data live is going to be really cool. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, technically, yeah. So Lisa has a question back to, I think, Nicole, because she talked about it. The copy pasting from Photoshop directly. How does that work?
What, technically?
Yeah, a little bit more depth here.
So in terms of use, you just open Photoshop, you select the region of the image you want, you copy, and then you paste into Gutenberg. Because the operating system's clipboard gives it a data type and just supplies binary data, Gutenberg says, I know what this data type is, here's the data, and it gives you the image. It's absolutely incredible. One of the things which I would really like to work on is a podcast theme. So people who do podcasts and want to paste in audio data, being able to have some kind of audio editing block would be incredible for podcasters. So that's
yeah.
I'd want to see that tied into like Amazon S3 or some other sort of remote self-hosting, so that I can take my 50 meg podcast link and not have to worry about overloading my my poor little shared host server.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest question that I get when people ask me, okay, how do you do podcast? Is, well, you need a audio storage that's fast enough for the Google Play Store as well as for iTunes to actually recognize, to approve it, because there's some delay in there. And all I can help them is kind of doing those cloud storages. But then there's other hurdles there for some of the lesser technical inclined people. So they get all intimidated about it. But
that's why people still use stuff like SoundCloud, because sometimes a service is better than trying to do it yourself.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or Blueberry or something like that. Yeah. So I'm still on the editing part, and this was all very almost is the slash command. I'm really happy about the slash command. Yeah, that is one part is markup. The other part is I can include any block that I want with a short code, key code, just by hitting enter on the paragraph, do slash, and then the image, say I for image, or and I get a selection actually, for cover image also. And that's, I find this really amazing. Yeah, that's really cool.
I'm still trying to figure out how to get the cover image to flag itself as the featured image as well, because I'm still using a theme that uses featured images, and I'd like to have that overlap so that I can call it in different ways. I'm sure I'll solve it eventually and share it when I do, but I'm still not there yet.
Yeah, and one of them is also the cover image on top should actually replace the title, and the text on the cover image could be the title. Kind of, this kind of, it's a little hacky right now to do that kind of thing. Yeah, we have another question actually in the question. So Scott has a question. So can you tell me later? Oh, Scott, what Gutenberg is? I heard it mentioned several times. So yeah, well, maybe can you explain what is Gutenberg? Yeah.
This is why I tell people don't name your plugins Gutenberg anymore, because now all anybody's going to know is it's the WordPress editor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just, you open up WordPress and here it is. Yes. Yeah, true. It's the Gutenberg is the WordPress new publishing experience, as it was called in the call out, right? Yeah. I see all those questions coming up. Lisa, of course, the editor formerly known as Gutenberg. Thank you, Scott, for tuning in. It reminded me a little bit of being conscious about one of the trainings that I had maybe 18 years ago, where I was talking about searching on the internet. And 30 minutes in, somebody asked me, what is a browser? Where I didn't make everything clear what the technical terms would be.
We're not laughing at the question, or nobody thinks that question is funny. We're laughing because of the assumptions we all make, which is everybody knows what Gutenberg is. Everybody knows what a browser is. And the reality is that those things aren't true. You have to learn a new vocabulary when you're working with anything, and WordPress is included, which is probably why so many people got scared about Gutenberg, is that we'd learned the tiny MCE vocabulary gradually over 5, 10, 15 years. And now we just got told, hey, we're going to throw it away. And that's a scary thing to hear, which is, I have to learn everything all over again. I think most people, new users, don't know any different. So for them, it's the easiest. Right. It's for us old stodgy people that it's just like, I have to remember how to do this. But in a month, it'll be second nature. And in a year, you'll have forgotten some of the stuff that you had to do. Or you'll look back like I did and go, remember when I had to do that?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for bringing that back, Mika. It seems we have all the time for today, unless you want to say, kind of touch on one of the topics that we talked about and haven't fully explained it. So, hang on, my computer is teaching me new things, I guess. So when people want to get in touch with you, how can they find you, or how do you want them to connect with you? Mika?
You're welcome to hit me up on Twitter, or if you've got plugin questions, come on by the plugin review chat room on WordPress Slack. That's for, obviously, your plugins that are hosted on WordPress.org. I've taken a step back from doing hands-on help for a lot of things because I've been dedicating a lot of my free time to my side project, and that takes up a lot of time. But if you do follow me on Twitter, you're going to be in for a ride. I'll just say that.
Nicola?
Yeah, let's say Twitter for me as well. I'm not now Nikki on there, NOTNOWNIKKI, because double Ks are cool. I also hang out on the WordPress Slack in Core Editor. And same disclaimer goes for Twitter as well, for me.
I should probably say what my Twitter handle was, shouldn't I?
You would find it in the show notes, but yeah, go ahead. It's
Ipstenu, IPSTENU. And basically, if you see that anywhere, that's probably me.
Yeah. So what's the story behind Not Now, Nikki?
There was a TV show in the UK called Inspector Morse.
Oh, yes.
And every now and then, especially in the books, Morse would go to his assistant, Lewis. Not now, Lewis. Lewis would be trying to tell him something important about the investigation, and Morse said, not now, Lewis, I'm having a drink. And so I was a big fan of Inspector Morse, and that's where it came from.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And Zach, how can people reach you when they want to get in touch?
Sure. JavaScript for WP.com. I got a little chat widget there. Usually keeping good office hours, so come say howdy, and Z Gordon on Twitter.
Well, thank you so much I learned so much, and thank you for sharing your wisdom, the long-time WordPress wisdom with us here on the show. Any last comments that you have? All right.
I would say don't be scared to try something new.
Thank you. All right, then thank you for your views and your questions. If you have any more questions that you want us to answer on live QA, we are back in 2 weeks. The recording will be available in a few minutes on YouTube, minus the 2 minutes that I kind of did not hit the record, but the live YouTube fast enough. The next Gutenberg Times live Q&A will be on January 11th, 2019. Again at 2 p.m. Eastern, 19 UTC. The guests will be Marius Jensen from the support team, Sherry Bigelow from the testing team, and Risto Pandyarov, the WordPress evangelist at SiteGround. And the show is sponsored by Polysystems and our generous patrons at Patreon. And if you find our work valuable, you can become a patron too. And we will have the link in the description below. Until the next time, goodbye and good luck.